and welcome back to We Are Unique. And if you want to be on the show, please do email me. Or if you've got any suggestions or comments regarding today's show, do email wau@europeNTV.com. And throughout the series, we're talking about different related conditions, different disabilities, not just about autism. So please do contact if you want to talk about your chosen subject or topic. So we've got Pat in the studio. Thank you for joining me, Pat.
Yeah.
And it's a pleasure just to interview your daughter. She's given me a bit more insight to Down syndrome. Yeah. When did you first realise your daughter, there was something wrong with your daughter?
When she was born.
So you knew
I didn't have
away.
any tests because I don't agree with abortion anyway, so there wasn't any point in having any tests. And I'd had one previous baby before, it was fine. And when I looked at her, the chromosome test takes some considerable time, like 24 hours. So the doctors err on the side of caution, and even though they suspect it, won't say anything. But I was asked, what do you think's wrong with your child? And I said, I think she has Down syndrome. And the consultant said, I think you're right. So it was a massive shock, huge shock. I loved her from the minute I saw her, of course. She's always been an absolute asset to the family. But at the time, I wanted the baby I thought I was having, so within 6 months I was carrying a brother. And so they were like twins, really. Oh. Because her delay in development equated to him during the toddler years. Yeah. And so, you know, they were the similar size. And he overtook her in the end, but there were times when the level of development was the same. Yeah. So it was very much like having twins.
Can you explain to some of the viewers who probably don't know what Down syndrome is, what it actually is, what the condition is?
Well, it's a chromosome issue, and it can happen to anyone. People said when I had my third child, aren't you afraid of it happening again? It doesn't happen again. There are 3 types of Downs. Only one is hereditary. The mosaic one is unusual, very rare. The one that Grace has is trisomy 21, which is the most common form of Down syndrome. And it's just a freak of nature. People attribute it to older mothers, younger mothers, but really there's a very wide spectrum of people who have children with Down syndrome. When I got over the shock, I decided that if I was going to have a child with Down syndrome, it was going to be the best Down syndrome child possible. And so I'd finished work as soon as I had her. I was a teacher. And I finished my full-time job and focused on getting her to be as good as she is today. She had portage as a child. That's a special kind of therapy to bring the stages of development forward. Mm-hmm. She had pneumonia twice and almost died, although she was a massive baby, 8 pounds 13. She still struggled eating in the early years. But after a while, we just forgot about the Downs. It was just one of those things. And I can always remember my old girl, Esther, had been to hospital visits and such all her life, along with the baby. And I can remember her rolling her trouser legs up one day and looking down and saying, have I got special knees, Mum?
So how were the teenagers growing up with Grace? Were they okay, or did you find that a struggle or a challenge, or misconceptions with people's attitudes?
You don't think it's a challenge, really, at the time. You just get on with it, really.
Yeah.
And I've never had a bit of prejudice, and I've never known anyone, whether it happened when I wasn't there, I don't know, but nobody has ever bullied her, in my experience, or made fun of her in any way. So, as she became a teenager, she went into... We have middle schools in our area. Mm-hmm. So she went to a middle school up to the age of 11. She should have stayed till 13, but it wasn't working out, really. Her needs weren't being met. So she moved to Walton Special School, and she became resident there for some of the years. And they were much more geared up to bringing the best out of her. And, of course, this performing arts that she embraces so enthusiastically started there.
Yeah, that's really good. Have you faced any challenges at all?
Oh, yes, an awful lot of challenges, yes. One of my wishes for her is to have her employable. and we haven't succeeded yet. She did take a job at the county council offices on the reception desk for several years, and I was very proud that she did that. But the limitations of what she could do and how she could be occupied, I don't like the idea of her being babysat. You know, she needs to do something meaningful, and so we're always on a quest to you know, settle that.
And do you think there has been any ignorance at all, or lack of understanding about the condition?
I haven't experienced it because she's always been a confident girl and been able to speak up for herself.
Yeah, she's very confident.
Yes, overconfident sometimes. And I haven't ever noticed that anyone has felt prejudiced against her. She gets on with people very well. And she's an individual. She doesn't bother much with particular friends.
Yeah.
She likes everyone. And she's very popular.
Yeah.
So issues like that haven't happened, really. I can't think of any problems. I'll probably think of them later. No.
Yeah. What support do you think there is locally and nationally for people
There's
with Downs?
quite a lot of support. The Down Syndrome Association doesn't operate very well up north. Down in the south, they've got a lot of offices and a lot of support there, but there's not much going on up here.
So in Stoke-on-Trent's North Staffordshire,
I mean,
is there any
really,
support
north
groups?
of Watford, there doesn't seem to be much
Right.
in terms of that particular association. But people have tried to help her in terms of giving her outlets. For example, there's New Directions in Stafford, which is an activity group where they do lots of interesting stuff, and she's been involved in that. And the staff at the house where she lives, that she has 24/7 supervision. They're very good at doing things. They take them on holiday, and it's been really good for her living there. She loves living in the house where she is. And she has a level of independence. I mean, some of the problems we had at the early times with road safety, because she just liked to go off on her own, and she's now just reached the level of maturity where road safety isn't really an issue now. She knows how to cross the road, and she's
good.
okay. Everything takes just that bit longer.
Yeah.
The difference with Downs is that people with Down syndrome develop for a very long time, whereas we normally reach our maturity in the 20s. They carry on learning for a long, long time. Everything is slowed down. And they're likeable because, for example, in the Aztec country in Mexico, they used to worship Down syndrome people. They thought they were angels. They thought they were from heaven. And the Maya civilization.
So is that in the history?
Is that what?
Is that in the history of?
Oh yes, the history. I mean, many years ago, of course,
Yeah.
they worshipped them because they looked different, and they didn't imagine that there was anything like a disability. They just thought they were from heaven or angels or something like that.
Yeah.
That's why she thinks she's an angel, I think.
If you could change anything about the understanding of the condition, what would it be?
I wouldn't change a thing about Grace. I mean, if you take me back 27 years and before I delivered her, I would have said, please, I just want a normal baby. But when she was born, that was it. I didn't want to change a thing about her. Because Downs is like a cloak that you wear. There's a person inside who's different than every other Downs person. And it's just like putting a cloak on with the syndrome itself. So the individual...
say for example, sorry to interrupt. So say for example, if you had 5 people in this studio now with Down syndrome, would they all be all the same?
Oh, not
or would
at
they
all,
be all
no.
completely
They're
different?
very different, very different. I mean, there's different levels of ability, of course. In the old days, they used to call people like Grace high grade, but they don't use terms like that now. Or they don't use terms like Mongol now.
So people with Down syndrome, can they do a lot of Down syndrome have a learning disability? Or
They all have a learning disability.
They all have learning disability.
But they have different levels of intelligence.
Right.
And usually you find that they're literate more than numerate. Numeracy has always been an issue for Grace. If I was to think of a problem, it would be numeracy, because it prevents shop work, for example, and lots of things that require numbers for, and the money has to be controlled by others. So the numeracy isn't strong, but literacy is excellent.
So coming back to when I previously interviewed your daughter, she was on about the TV show, what she was involved in on Channel 4. Now, she was a TV extra there, but she perceived herself as being the star role.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. I'm afraid she often does that.
Is that normally typical with people with Down?
Not necessarily. I don't think it's Grace's personality. We've always told her she's amazing, amazing Grace.
Yeah.
And she believes it very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've always tried, all as siblings and a father and myself, we've all tried to build up her self-esteem.
Yeah.
And so we might have gone a bit overboard on it, maybe, I don't know. No, she wasn't. She was asked to join the cast of No Offence, because of the particular episode that they're filming had a Down syndrome element in it.
Yeah.
And there were other people with Down syndrome there as well. And as it happened, we got a sister and I, and we're chaperoning, and we got roped in as well. But she got paid. We did it for nothing.
So what does she have to portray in the
Well,
in the
there
series?
was an interview scene in the police station where there had been some murders taking place, and they gathered the Down syndrome population of the fictional area. We had to go to Salford for this, to television studios. They gathered them together and interviewed them and asked them various questions about being careful about this man who was prowling and murdering them. It took all day, but the actual bit of film was 6 minutes, which is probably usually what happens.
Yeah.
We did it over and over again. And when it was on the TV, it didn't have much of an impact. It didn't get great reviews. And I think they dropped it in the end. But the experience was good.
Yeah, and obviously that helps build your confidence
Indeed,
and self-esteem.
yes. Yeah. We've had a lot of experiences because of Grace, you know, lots of different things that have happened over the years because she's who she is.
Yeah. So what would you like to see in the future for Grace?
I'd like to see her in the workplace. That's my main theme. I'd like to see her enjoying her artistic, you know.
And what type of, in the ideal world, what type of job would you foresee her to be doing in the future?
I'm not sure, really.
Yeah.
Reception work. I mean, she's very good with people, and
Yeah.
you know, meeting and greeting and things like that.
Yeah.
She does a little bit of part-time work with her father's partner, she said. She's an accountant, and she's a medical accountant, so she takes her to conferences and things, and she does, you know, things like giving out the programmes and meeting and greeting and that sort of thing. And she's very good at that sort of thing. I'd love her to have some kind of a job. I do feel she's wasted because she's got a lot of gifts, and the jobs which we've tried to get her to do have never been appropriate somehow or other, and the boredom level, unfortunately, has seen a lot of them out. So that's what I would like. But mostly I'm concerned about her happiness. What she's taught us as a family is humility.
Yes.
I've never been embarrassed about it, ever. Something happened to me after she was born, which made me completely immune to any issues to do with disabilities. I embrace that.
I think does it give you, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but does it give you a different perspective on life?
I'd never met anybody with Downs before till I met her. And the handicap community has embraced us, and it's been wonderful to meet the people we've met and see the progress that can be made and the dedication. And what she's taught us as a family is humility. None of us have ever been embarrassed by her at all. You know, we're just very, very proud to be related to her. And she's very, very popular with all her family.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today on the show, and your daughter. It's been a pleasure to have you both.
It's been a great pleasure
and
to share this with you.
You'll share much insight for people who are watching today's show. So if you've got any questions about Down syndrome and you want to contact the studio, please do email the studio. Until next month, have a great month, and we'll be back next month. We'll be talking more about different types of disabilities and conditions on We Are Unique.